I feel like I should have like a more dramatic entrance, make it all sort of Halloween-y, but yeah, so tonight we're doing a Halloween special event where we're going to talk about how you would sword fight various monsters. And for those who don't know me, I'm Tim. I'm the sort of regular instructory person at the Old Sword Club and other things. Yeah. And I'm getting weird feedback in my...
Well, you sound okay from my end.
Yeah, no, the video, I had the video to check that it was going live on YouTube okay. I had it open and it went live on YouTube okay. But anyway, in good news, my weird technical issues, I am joined by Lois Spangler, who is, amongst other things, a writer and editor and has published several short stories, and also is a translator of Distressor works and a just general awesome person when it comes to the Spanish fencing tradition. So welcome, Lois. And then I'm also joined by Mosh, who is known for various things. There's the Mosh of many things. But yeah, amongst them is lots of HEMA. I think you were saying that you've become more known for doing rapier than backsword now, although you also do a lot of longsword.
Yeah, within 1 year.
1 year.
Whoops.
That is impressive. You also have done a shit ton of LARP and a lot of like unarmed martial arts and just generally a great many things. So hence, I don't know, like the mosh of many things. That's what I got.
There is a very young Mosh just screaming excitedly. Is very happy to hear that.
Cool. So tonight the plan is we're just going to talk about how you would fight various monsters in honor of Halloween. So we're probably just going to start with a monster topic. Talk a little bit about what, maybe be a little bit more specific than just how would you fight thing X, just to kind of like a bit of like some ground rules. But as we're going along, if anyone has any questions, just chuck them down in the comments. We will get to them eventually. I used to promise that I'll get to them as soon as I can, but that's a lie. There's been at least one time where someone's made a comment. It's taken me at least half an hour to get to. So I will get to it in a time frame. And then we'll just, if you have any, just jump in. We will just go on. So let's start off with the first monster of the evening. So vampire, like traditional kind of, I guess like Dracula style vampire. So definitely not very fond of sunlight. Stakes through the heart, decapitation. Good. Not fan of not necessarily not fan of crosses or religious symbols generally. I don't know. I don't know how that's meant to work. So like, what if it's a non-denominational vampire? Also not fond of garlic. Just like the kind of general vampire-y tropes. But I am also going to say that we need to avoid like cop-out answers where it's like, oh well, we'll just attack them during the daytime. Like, what do you do if it's at night? And that you're fighting. You might be attacked by a vampire. It was either that or you'd be attacked by a chicken every time you get in the car. So
I've got an answer immediately, and that would be Godinho's pocket sand and offhand steak. For those times when you're going to be accosted day or night by somebody hiding around corners to get you. But pocket sand's going to be my answer for just about everything because. Pocket sand. But I think rapier is going to be a very good candidate here. Either you get yourself, if you know it's going to happen, if you know you're going to have duel at midnight with a vampire, you're going to get somebody to craft you a good hardened hardwood rapier. And you're going to go rapier and you're going to go dagger.
And both of the mistakes.
And you're gonna what's the profanity rating on this particular episode?
Normal Australian profanity amount,
so just fuck tons. That's what you're going to do, right? So you've got your sword, so you can engage him and keep him off your neck, and then you've got the dagger, so you can get that in. And if you happen to get all discombobulated, you've got the dagger to hold him off to the side, and then you've got the sword that you can, it's like, would bullfighting a vampire. It'll be great.
It's bullfighting a vampire. Yeah, fair. I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, we're all going to come up with different solutions because I'm horrible at rapier. So, like, when I say that wouldn't be my approach, it's nothing to do with the merits of the weapon in its own regard and everything to do with
it's what you're familiar
skill.
with, right? And it depends on what he's fighting you with. Like, if it's some kind of honorable duel at midnight, well, you got to make overtures. And if it comes down to, oh no, this is genuinely a piece of metal with some splinters attached to the point, it may not stop a vampire, but a splinter is going to be a bit debilitating. It's like a dim mock to the
to the heart.
to the vampire.
That's a very. I mean, like if it's a wooden stake to the heart to kill a vampire, like
a wooden
about how much
is enough to cause him, like, it gives him vampiric arthritis or something, Lockjaw? I don't know.
Yeah.
Splinters stop me usually, so like I
on
get
a
it.
spectrum of splintered to stay, like where.
Right, that was the thing I was thinking about all week.
If you want to go a bit,
you go. Sorry.
well, I was no. If you've got, I want to hear your technique because I think we can compare and contrast, and even better, if we get on in there, then we can flank him, and we have a better chance of not dying.
Which is usually the goal.
I don't like being attacked.
Right. So I was thinking like starting what the threat is, but also like what's the difference between a 16-foot pike that needs to be like, I am bad at this. If it needs to be 1.5 feet long for X reasons, I just had the image of like really messed with Maya manuscripts and just doing Maya for a dagger. I was just like, just treat their hair and lock them up. And just do dagger
I like
and clinch.
I like David Gresham just jumped in with a comment, and I think he's onto something. I do, because you got your pocket for your pocket sand, but a basket hilt. You got a nice Shavona.
Yeah.
It's like a Shavona. It's an Italian sword with a big. This is, and if you press your fist forward, it's like a garlic press. So like then you can do like pommel strikes, and it's doubly effective. These are some really great ideas. David's onto something.
I did do the garlic. Well, I mean, I just like the idea of using a basket hilted sword as storage. Like I don't think this is just. This doesn't even need to be limited to combat. You can use it for like coins or like really cool rocks and stuff you find. Just wander around with it, like it's already a basket, so why not?
Would anybody like a mint? Where the hell were you keeping that?
He didn't bring it up. He's doing Italian, Scottish stick fighting at the moment, and he's trying to put that together. And he was just saying, only 2 days ago, like, a session where we have like a snuff box that you do the pocket sand trick, but your snuff box has whatever is in it, usually Coke. But we're just an old Scottish snuff box full.
Snuff to the face would suck if that's not what you were expecting. Like if you want the snuff, that's a totally different thing. But surprise snuff, that's like biting into the jalapeno that's actually way too hot and has no business being among its brethren. When you're making salsa that time. Perhaps I speak from experience. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, because I like the idea of testing everything. I'm almost like, how would you test pocket sand? How would you make bouting safe pocket sand?
We've been thinking about that a lot, and a lot of people will say, ooh, glitter. And it depends on the ground that you're working on, because glitter is even if you get the bio-friendly stuff, it is crazy slippery. So if you're throwing glitter on the floor, and you try to then fight over that, glitter detritus, you're in for some unpleasant surprises.
Yeah,
Garlic salt.
David and I thought
throw in,
hankies.
powdered garlic. Heck with that.
I think that would just be unpleasant regardless of how vampiric you are. If you're already got pockets,
Right? Shillelagh cured in
There we
garlic
go.
herbs. Listen, are you fighting with a weapon or are you snacking on it?
why not both? I think this is something we seriously need to investigate. Is edible weapons or like?
Well, all right. So if you imagine like a cow shoulder as a shillelagh, like it's going to be short, but it's going to have the right heft, and it's going to have that big knob at the top, that will.
It's gonna hurt.
It's going to do the job. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in the way of that. But it would be delicious, and like it would have been slow cooked and braised in garlic, and have at you with my dinner.
That's amazing.
And then if we want to get even sillier, well, why not have a nice, well cooked pizza as a targe? You got your shillelagh, you got your targe.
It depends how much garlic sauce you put, because then it might end up just a very bad.
Yeah.
Is it?
And if it hasn't been baked well, it is going to be an offhand
crust?
cake, that's for sure.
But it's still going to be defensive implement, which is the important thing.
Well, if it tangles up their teeth, you're good to go. Like, if we consider their puncture weapon, the thing that you want to defend against, as their teeth, then yes, interposing the pizza between you and the bites, it's not a bad idea.
And then you can clinch and do your dagger work without worrying about personal.
Yeah. And to go back to the
Their
polearm,
threat dealt with.
I think, like, I am definitely in favor of polearms. I love me some polearms. I love halberd. But if you end up with a vampire that teleports, you do need to make sure that you've got some kind of offhand poignard, dagger, something ready to go. If he's going to try to teleport within your circle, and you can't quite turn around to push him back.
Yeah, or just turns. Well, that was the thing I was thinking. So, like, if I was going to have an offhand weapon against a vampire, like, and my primary weapon is probably going to be like a saber or a cutlass, just because I'm me. But if you want to have an offhand weapon, like an offhand cape would be really, really useful, because you've got like a parrying device, you've got something like a smothering device as well. And if the vampire like turns into a swarm of bats or a swarm of rats, you
that's
can
a good one. Yeah,
cape over.
throw it over.
And,
also, the soggy pizza also works here.
true. The thing that got me thinking about this is I once had an issue in a share house where we're invaded by possums, and I had to defend my house using, well, in this case, it was a towel to try and trap a possum.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I mean, I suspect the possum would have liked being trapped in a pizza much more than a towel, but
Yeah, fair. But,
like that, same kind of thing of like, how do you deal with a small animal or multiple small animals? Is throw large thing of fabric over the top of them, and then take them to wires, and I don't know if there's like an equivalent of like animal rescue, but for vampires. Maybe in Transylvania.
Probably is in New Zealand, if we're honest.
It depends how many red
because Kyle.
flags a vampire has.
Yeah.
The more red flags, someone will try and.
Yeah, definitely. So Kyle briefly mentioned a fistful of confetti, and unfortunately, Kyle, from personal experience, unless you're doing this issue, unless you're actually trying to do the throwing over a non-civilized floor, like if you're outside, it's okay, but if you're not outside, you end up with the same slip problem as the glitter, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I do like confetti better than glitter, just because glitter gets everywhere. Like,
So does sand, hey? Like,
Yeah, I know. Well,
you know,
this is part of the safe simulator principle. Is the confetti like you'll get like 1 or 2 pieces of confetti in your clothes that will go away once you change. Whereas with glitter, if you're using glitter as a pocket sand simulator, you're going to have glitter on you for at least 2 weeks.
No. 3 years later, you're going to be unfolding a shirt you haven't worn in a while, and you're like, that training session was in 2021. What the hell?
I've moved house 3 times since I last attended a Mardi Gras, and I still find glitter in some of my clothes. And not even like clothes I haven't worn in a while. Just clothes, you know.
It'll just appear. You're just minding your own business, and you're washing a dish in the kitchen. You're like, why, where, when? I've vacuumed this place easily, like 7 or 8 times in the interim. Like,
But did you vacuum yourself? Is the question.
entirely possible, yes.
Fair. Speaking of things that multiply out of control and kind of like an infectious disease,
Dribbles.
Zombies.
Ah.
How would you? Okay. So actually, I looked into this a bit to try and get, because I like to try and actually ground these discussions a little bit in reality. Obviously, like it is a fantasy discussion. We can pretend it's realistic, but so zombies are a really interesting one because the modern zombie myth actually does have an ancestral form in the European revenant. So like medieval folklore talks about the revenant as a reanimated corpse that kind of works like a zombie but without like the infectious bit. And probably it may have also been part of the inspiration for the creatures in Night of the Living Dead, which in spite of being credited as the first zombie movie, never uses the term zombie, interestingly enough. Whereas the term zombie itself comes from Haitian folklore, but is quite different in Haitian folklore, where say a person reanimated not as an aggressive attacking monster, but rather as a slave, which I guess is kind of drawn from sort of Haiti's experience being the site of the first successful slave revolt, where the thing that culturally terrifies them is the idea that you could be enslaved in a way that you couldn't escape, which I thought was quite interesting. But I guess for our purposes, we're talking about zombies in like the Hollywood sense of there's lots of them. They're probably infectious. Maybe a swarm, like kind of swarmy. What kind of weapons and tactics would you want?
For me, Team Halberd all the way. You're gonna want a cutting weapon with a long pole, and your job is not to take off the head because that's hard. It's a small target. No, knock off the legs. Make it so that they can't walk easily. Once that happens, then you get your friends with a petrol to douse them and set them on fire. Immobilize them. That's the thing that they do. They just keep chasing you no matter what. And like you're running away, and for some reason they're just like loping along, but for some reason they somehow keep catching up to you. So make it harder for them to keep up with you. Off the legs.
That just destroys my first thought. That's brilliant.
What was your first thought?
No.
So-
What's your tactic? What's your approach?
Shaolin shovel. Do you know what that is?
Ooh.
No.
It is like a halberd, but its one end has a very shovel-like to it, made out of metal, but it's sometimes like a crescent moon. But this.
I do know what you're talking about. I didn't know that's what it was called, but I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have one side that if you stab with it is like stabbing with a shovel, so it shouldn't get stuck in the same way. You can still slash with it because it's got that curve. It's called a monk's spade. Right. Also another name for it.
There we go. Yeah.
The crescent part that you can shove with as well and like hold things back.
Oh, so you can
challenge.
That's an even better weapon. I like that much better.
That's right, and it's like it's got all you want from the halberd for that interaction without the getting the bit of it stuck sometimes.
Yeah. And you also need to have somebody with, shorter weapons in the back, just in case, because they come in hordes. You can't necessarily stop all of them. A war scythe would be pretty good because, if it's just a bunch of walking legs, they're not really going to threaten you all that much. But yeah, at that point, you'd be able to do any kind of axe and shield fighting. You'd be able to do any kind of Eastern Shamshir, scimitar, alfange kind of fighting. Preferably, again, with a shield.
Big slashes.
Yeah. I guess there's also a big element of like the specifics of the zombies, because my first thought was not polearm, because I'm like, I'd want like a cutlass or like a shorter weapon, because if I see a zombie in the open or anywhere where zombies will be visible, I'm just going to do what I've been doing for the last 6 months under COVID and just avoid the heck out of anything vaguely human shaped.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the times I'd be most worried about like being attacked by a zombie would be when I'm inside a building where I'm in a confined space, in which case I want like a cutlass or a messer or something that is short and choppy in a confined space.
Yeah, a messer's a nice call.
Falchion or a
Kriegsmesser. Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
Anything that's hacky slashy that's gonna damage the integral structure of the undead body that is attempting to move. The reason I like the pole arms is because, I've got my right angle guard. If I can extend my right angle guard, I will. You can't touch me. There we go. You can't touch me. No, stay back.
And then we start getting really like in the situation, right? Like if you've got people doing a rolling pike block to get to the 7-Eleven, if you're in said 7-Eleven, cutlass.
Yeah, Yeah, you can easily go back to tercio tactics and absolutely make some great progress that way.
Like polearm as your primary weapon, then just like like a messer or something for backup. Yes.
Yeah, so like you've got your polearm folks up at the front, and then you have your shorter weapon folks in the back, so that if the pike should drop, the pike operators or the polearm operators can fall back, so they have enough time to draw their weapons, but the people who already use the shorter arms are ready to go.
So 1600 to arrive. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a good idea to be thinking about using blades and stuff, because while ammunition is plentiful, it does run out eventually. And even though you can make your own ammunition, trying to do that from scratch is actually very, very difficult.
Yeah, I was like, many years ago, I was looking at post-apocalyptic stuff for role-playing purposes, and like the chemical components needed for gunpowder require like quite heavy industry, and so like best case scenario, making it yourself, you're going to make like old-fashioned black powder, which is very, very smoky. Which is like, that's the thing. Like when you see like reconstructions of Napoleonic era warfare. I think a lot of people forget is like the battlefields would have just been shrouded in smoke. Like you see musket volley, like modern reenactors, like all like a musket line of 5 or 6 people firing at not a particularly fast rate because it's for a show, and you're mostly just wanting to make a loud noise and upset small children. You still get like a reasonable amount of smoke just off that, and you can imagine like a musket line of or like a battle of thousands of people. Like after like not particularly long of firing, like 10 minutes of firing, the battlefields were probably so covered in smoke that you just couldn't see. Which I guess is also why like melee weapons were important, like bayonets were important, because there's a point where you're just like, enemy might, or even more so like hangers, like having essentially a cutlass, but more traditionally with a knuckle bow than with a shell hilt, was really, really important.
Gareth's got a good point. Using a mace just to shatter bone, that's a cool idea. And that requires far less finesse. This is a good idea. I mean, if I really wanted to get fancy schmancy, I'd get an Iberian flail or a montante, and that allows you to clear space. But you have to have the endurance to keep doing that for more than about 2 to 3 minutes straight. I can manage about 2 minutes straight, and then I start regretting a lot of my life choices.
That's so fair. Or you just like every time someone asks, like, "Oh, it's just so I can montante for 12 minutes straight."
Right? Yeah. Endurance? Yeah, that's no problem.
So with the inverse of that being that if, you know, I mean, I'm not necessarily implying that I would side with the zombies at all, but if you needed to deal with someone with a montante, the best thing is just to basically keep them moving for like 3 minutes until they get too tired.
Well,
like, is that the solution to that problem?
If you do it right, you don't get that tired. So first you have to get it moving. Once you get it moving, it becomes easier as long as you don't do things to stop it. You can do things to redirect it, and you can sort of turn yourself into a cantilever in a way, so that if you know there's something behind you, you can be striking forward, and as the sword's coming back down to the side, you can let that turn you as it extends out. So now your body is facing another direction, and then you can bring it over your head for another strike. So it's this kind of mutual pushy-pulley, tensiony energy transfer thing. So if you do it right, you're probably going to be okay. But if you have, like, you know, row after row after row after row of zombies, the person who's got the montante, their job is to make sure that everybody can get into the safe space, and then they get the hell in.
So I would like to put attention towards David's most recent comment that I hate.
Oh.
That's true. That's true. You will never have the trigger condition to fire. And then what do you do? You're done.
You just didn't tick the boxes, and I'm burned.
Yeah,
I guess I'll
file
go.
Not found.
He's right in front of me, but his eyes are still. Ow! He's chewing on me. This is not good. Ow.
Yeah, probably bad if you dipped yourself in garlic in preparation for the vampire as well. You know.
Yeah, you just prep for the wrong fight. Oh well, here I am.
Right. Why do you smell like a Sunday roast? I thought it was vampires today. Sorry.
I'm just glad that I've got food with me while we're talking about this, because otherwise I would be very, very hungry right now.
Yeah, like I'm half tempted to order a pizza, but I just don't have the energy to do that.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Speaking of insatiable hungers and a desire to consume, werewolves. How how would you deal with a werewolf? And Lois, you've done silversmithing, haven't you?
Yep.
So that then has an extra question for you: is how easily could silver be integrated into a weapon?
Silver is too soft to be the dominant metal, but what you can do is electroplating. You can electroplate the living shit out of anything. So my suggestion would be to get yourself a good weapon, and don't rely on a cutting edge. You want to rely on a thrust. You want to rely on an actual point, because you're going to have to shave off the molecule layers of silver to get that sharpened up to a point. So you just electroplate the weapon, electroplate the blade, and you don't even have to electroplate the whole thing. Just like maybe the first third of it, and that, I mean, unless werewolves have a caustic blood system or something, you'd probably have enough silver to last you several stabs. Yeah.
And so, depending on how common how many werewolves you have to deal with between maintenances, but but still, yeah, like that makes it. So but within that, you're saying you'd want a thrusting weapon, so you'd want like a rapier or like a small sword or.
Well, going with whomever Gareth mentioned a mace, I think could do a mace or a morning star, probably a morning star because that's got the pointy bits, and you could go ahead and do it with that, and you could use that.
Yeah. The sort of the bludgeoning stuff.
Yeah, the trick with Mercury
is
that Mercury is liquid at at room temperature, so that makes it a little more difficult. Because it tends to beat up, it won't it's not like coating a blade in poison or something like that. The mercury will beat up and repel off of whatever metal you're trying to put it on. Yeah.
So you can't.
Yeah. But if there were a way, how cool would it be if you could manage to have like freeze-dried mercury kept in a cold container, and then you could throw pocket mercury? That would be great.
So it's
immaculate.
So you're just going to run around like with an esky full of mercury, just
yeah. You know what? Just get a super soaker full of mercury. I mean, if we're talking modern day, HEMA's got some good answers, but a super soaker will do you just fine in this particular instance.
Yeah.
Could you do electroplate an axe or electroplate a halberd so that the edge itself is still nice, good carbon steel that'll slice through, and once it's about 1.5 inches deep, it starts being a lot of silver in there?
Yeah, you can absolutely
the same
put a
game
resist,
as the rapier or something with the thrusting weapon.
So, there's all kinds of resists you can put on, but things like rubber cement work. Whiteout, I think, works. But you can just put a resist, and then let the rest of it be electroplated. So like the cutting edge is about like 1 centimeter, and then the rest can be silver plated. And if you're gonna go for gusto, then it's a chunk.
Sort of I guess the question is how do you get the initial? Get that sort of that initial depth.
Yeah, this wound won't close. Try that.
Yeah. And Bill suggested dog treats or throw a stick, and domestication was kind of my cop-out answer for werewolf.
The dog treat may not work, but you know what? If you've got a really good steak, both human and werewolf.
Yeah, I'll fall for that.
Kick in, right?
So I'm going to go the complete other direction. Pringle green system done with a silver bullet.
Yes, so...
Right? Cut every other bit of that one bullet you've got. Left-handed. Let's go. Start on a good +1.
Pringle green, for those who might have tuned into this but not seen some of the previous workshops, wrote a manual of naval defense, like board action defense, where he advocates firing a pistol out of your left hand, using your cutlass in your right, and then as soon as you fired your pistol, turning it around and using it as a parrying device. So, hence why I think that's actually pretty cool, because if the only way to kill a werewolf is a silver bullet, it also means you've got the sword to defend yourself, so you can use the sword to kind of stop the werewolf from grabbing you, and you can get quite close before you fire.
Just swat that thing.
Yeah.
Just hoping that it doesn't claw you.
Smack it hard on the nose. Hit it hard on the nose.
Yeah, that's kind of thing. Well, yeah, that's a question. Although actually, because I did look into werewolf myths a little bit as well, and they're really weird and interesting in that a lot of Indo-European cultures have at some point in their history had a variant of a tradition where the young men of the village would go out into the wilderness, and they'd go basically, and they weren't allowed back into the village until they brought back something of value, which meant that in a lot of cases they go raiding. And where this gets relevant to werewolves and werewolf mythology is they would often wear the skins of wolves whilst doing it. And it's also thought this is where the Viking Berserker tradition, bear shirt tradition, kind of comes from, where you're wearing animal skins to symbolize that you are no longer you're part of the wilderness for a given period. So like and this is kind of thought to be where like werewolf myths kind of come from as well, where it's that same symbolism of this person has gone savage. They're basically like a degenerate teenage boy who's been given a license to go and steal stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and this is
Goals.
Yeah.
I like the sulfur idea, but the sulfur will assault the werewolf senses and our own.
Yeah, like something very strong smelling.
And it's like,
When in doubt, double out.
yeah.
Well, could you rather than using pocket sand, could you use like pocket pepper?
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, like that like just I mean, you need to resist the urge to use the pepper to like cook whatever way you're going to use.
Why is life so bland? Because Karen had to kill that werewolf last night. Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, that's probably how it will.
David says, yes, my pocket California Reaper. Yeah, that is perhaps a respectable weapon.
Can you actually, isn't California Reaper one of the chilies that you need like a glove to handle?
It's the Carolina Reaper, and I do not recommend touching it and then touching any other part of your body at any other time. I do not. Do not.
Yeah, I've had actually.
Like the capsaicin has stayed in my hands for 3 days, and I've washed my hands. I've rinsed them in milk. I've done all the things that they tell you to
That's
do.
horrific.
And even then, I'm like, I got a boogie up my nose. I got like just horrible life mistakes.
Yeah.
So. Carolina Reaper, yes, excellent idea, but how do we contain it so we don't die?
Was it
Can you imagine a scene of these werewolves coming in on camp going, "Oh guys, no, that's some bad smells, cover up the nose," and then it's just everybody blistered and in writhing death poses on the ground.
just like
At least the werewolves didn't get me.
And then there's one little weedy werewolf in the back who goes, Carolina Reaper, I would stake my life on it.
I like it how it's always the nerdiest werewolf. It's the nerdiest werewolf that is also into chili. It's like one of those weird, uncanny things. Like I know so many nerds who are just really into spicy food. Well, like it's just a really high percentage of people. It does not make sense. So speaking of things that probably don't make sense but are still around, ghost. How would you HEMA against a ghost?
I think that may have to rely a lot on Rule 3.
Rule 3?
Right? So
never allow a human to come to harm?
No, rules. Do you not know the 3 rules? Okay, so the 3 rules of HEMA. And they come from somewhere. I suspect they come out of like Marcus and the old Glecca crew, but I'm not sure. There are 3 rules. Number 1, don't get hit. Number 2, hit the other guy. And number 3, look good while doing it. So it's going to have to be Rule 3. You're going to have to look like you know what you're doing. You're going to have to be like, listen, buddy, I may have a weapon that can't damage any kind of incorporeal thing, but I guarantee you if you try to mess with me, I will make your unlife incredibly difficult.
I see. So I thought you were just gonna say that just dress up to fight the ghost, put on a nice, 3-piece suit,
Well, you could do that, but you actually
I will. I will.
Now I cannot bring myself to resurrect from the dead this bugbear that the Spanish style of fencing is rooted in esoteric, hermetic magic stuffity stuff. But if you're up against a ghost who doesn't know any better, if you can draw out a quick little Thibaut circle, you're going to have a serious psychological advantage.
It's like you're trying to you're trying to placebo effect the ghost into death.
Unless I can come up with like a traditional HEMA way of getting a weapon that can actually affect an incorporeal being, or there's a method of getting an incorporeal being to be corporeal. That's about all I got.
Mosh.
Those images of the swords where you've got like the parcels of gunpowder and stuff along the fuller, assuming went great, but they were falchions with like parcels of gunpowder along them, so that you could like have a flaming sword. Because people were jackasses. 1500.
Yeah, people are going to do ridiculous stuff with gunpowder at any era of human
Like
history.
you forget the ghosts.
Yeah, that's true. What is the threat that a ghost presents? Like,
right? Do I need a shield?
well, you know, like, are we
I just
talking
need an angry person?
like, are we talking about Ghostbusters ghosts, or are we talking about Victorian Gothic novel ghosts, or are we like, ghosts range quite widely. And like, what you could do, like, depending on the ghost, you could be like, obviously you have unfinished business. The person who killed you is now long gone, but I'll stand in for them, and I'll do this last duel with you. Don't kill me.
just you know, fight a ghost to first.
It's like you just if you hit me with the sword, we're just going to say that's great and carry on, and I'm going to hope that I don't have some kind of spiritual scar for the rest of my existence in this universe.
What's in? Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't mind a spirit. That's sick.
I kind of want a spiritual scar now, or I mean, although unless of course that's like just very very kind of religiously aware ska music, in which case maybe not,
No, if I could have a spiritual ska, I would, and it would be an entire horn section. Hell yeah! It would be just maybe with the bagpipe in there. One's gonna mess with me. Nobody.
This is our solution for the undead, just a trumpet.
Revert to dude.
Always dude. Fair.
Also, I feel bad for bringing David's answers in constantly, but the way to fight the occult is a geometry.
Yeah, he's got great one-liners.
I've been telling Tybalt.
And that's the thing, like, it's really not, there's nothing occult about it, but the guy who did the translation does have occult leaning, so he's seeing things that he kind of wants to see, but it's really just Aristotelian science. Like, literally, Carranza, the dude who started this was like, sword fighting is this thing that is not very well viewed by the high people in society, but I want to play with the sword. So what he did was he did what he could to elevate sword fighting to a science, because in Spain, in Spanish territories, anybody had a sword. If you were a dude, you had a sword because that's what you did, And even though you had to be sanctioned by the royal government to teach, it was still a fairly street fighty thing to do. And so by writing this philosophical treatise that anchors all of sword fighting in the quadrivium, in the trivium and the quadrivium, that's how Carranza lent swordplay the authority and the refinement it needed to become a thing in the upper classes. And that's why you have these huge diagrams. They're not about, and if you stand facing west and raise your arm, no. It's all about, okay, we have to ground everything in first principles. Which are the first principles that nobody's going to be arguing about? It's going to be math and it's going to be geometry. Okay.
Just add it. What's I mean, that's also kind of a thing with like the Renaissance generally, is they were trying to be more theoretical.
You're right. They were working out of that sort of apprenticeship practice method of learning, and trying to tie it into first principles and theory.
Yeah. What's
It's so romantic as well. Like the image of I'm using not my barbaric tendencies as an
animal.
I'm using raw science of the mind of man against my gorgeous and ridiculous.
Yeah, like you know, I'm enamored enough with it that I'm actually trying to figure out how all this stuff works in 16th century Spanish.
Yeah, it was I mean, that's kind of the thing about like a lot of these big grand. Like that's actually the thing with the Renaissance generally is they started looking for these big, grandiose theories of life, the universe, and everything. And that's because you see it a bit in like Italian as well, where they're trying to they're trying to bring in like a lot of the math and geometry, and then
Agrippa was an engineer. Agrippa was a civil engineer. Like,
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, there's also a thing where like sword fighting was like fencing was one thing that you would, if you were a teacher, it was a thing you could teach. So and so like most fencing instructors, like I teach, sword fighting and math and philosophy and whatever else.
I teach medicine and the art of the sword.
Blade goes in, blade comes out. Blade goes in.
This seems like a bit of a conflict of interest in your interest.
Customers to customers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Did you teach him moves that you didn't teach me? Maybe. That'll be 12 florins.
Yeah, I think that was like a legit thing you'd do is you had like the special techniques that you would only teach if you were paid extra. But
that's all a part of, that's what Carranza parodies in the second book of the Philosophy of Arms. He makes fun of the vulgar maestro for outright teaching secret unbeatable techniques, but he'll only teach them to you if you pay him. But since you're a friend of a friend, he's going to give it to you for mate's rates. And Figueiredo gets really angry in his offhand section. He's like, listen, you got to teach sword alone first. Sword alone first. Quit starting this nonsense with teaching people sword and dagger at the beginning and then saving the secret techniques for last so you can charge them an arm and a leg. Like, we have these things attested.
Yeah, and isn't it also a thing where like the secret techniques are always something?
I will have ghosts very pissed. That is why we will have ghosts very pissed at us, because they've all been ripped off and they see us with single swords and go, yes, you look like the person who ripped me off 400 years ago. Here we are.
You're saying the same stuff he did, and I am in no mood.
I died trying to get a fencing master to teach me the secret techniques without having to pay. And yeah. The secret technique is probably like throw your pommel at them, or
right. It's like secret technique is kick him in the ghoulies and run. Like,
so I just had the stupidest thought. Like, this is weapons grade stupid, and I have to share it now. So we're talking about ghosts, and Halloween. Yeah. Why would we not at like a HEMA conference have a seance to try and summon the ghost of an old fencing master?
Dude, we're gonna have to do it. We are going to have to do that. We're going to have to do that. Answer Cloudy, please take right angle. But the thing is, like, there's going to be
sports psychology
what we have to do
evidence.
Is not just seek to get one. We're going to have to get two, because then we can all sit back for the dinner entertainment as they argue each other back into the ground. Oh no.
Yeah, it's true. The HEMA.
David Gresham's in with another good one-liner. So he's answered it. The only way to get rid of a ghost is with a pommel. That's the only way to do it.
Just end them rightly.
That's why there's so many ghosts. We keep using the wrong end of the sword.
Yeah.
We do.
It's the false one.
Nobody told us. What? I don't know. Or maybe you have to hit him with the flat ear strong. Oh no!
No, that is a HEMA ghost that we should never bring up.
I want to backpedal about 6 chapters because I've probably disappointed Gareth by the fact that no one suggested to use George Silver against werewolves.
Oh, right.
Ooh.
Ah.
Say something really racist to it. that was me. It's as someone who does British sword fighting, it's the pain of the trajectory of British fencing is basically go to you start at the point where all the manuals we have are from people who are basically that uncle that you're not sure whether or not you want to invite to Christmas to someone and eventually right to the point where someone who where they turn into someone who'd be fun to invite to a dinner party. So
McBain, fun to invite to a dinner party, though you're going to have to pay some serious bills for the damage. But
that's what makes it fun. Yeah.
If you have any Dutch giants at your dinner party, he'll be able to get rid of them.
You're going to need to explain that reference because McBain and Dutch giants?
Oh, we're going to pretend that now we're talking about how to defeat Bigfoot because it ties into McBain.
All right, well, we'll deal with Bigfoot next, and not just because I haven't thought of a monster we're going to fight yet.
McBain has a
But before then, you need to explain how to use George Silver's method against a werewolf.
Yeah, so starts clawing, starts grabbing, starts swinging, and all you do is stand backwards and swing downwards. First defense done. Don't need to worry about it. Has
That's
Silver
right.
in the name.
Like
it's
the arm is up here, and you just go.
Yeah. You are a backpedaling.
How about? Because somebody else mentioned it before. I think Bill Anderson said a rolled-up newspaper.
Opposition.
So what if you're holding up a rolled-up newspaper and you just drop your hand?
Boom. Bad dog.
You can't grab it. You just go straight for the nose. Let's go.
Having had to actually restrain a dog on several occasions, that is actually a thing you do.
Yeah, they don't like no touching the nose.
Yeah, it's if you're in a situation where you're trying to help someone who's been a dog is latched onto, and the dog is bitten on very hard. One of the things you do is you grab onto the nose and below the jaw, and that will incentivize the dog to let go. But it doesn't actually, as soon as you let go, the dog is fine again. So it means you don't have to hurt the dog, which I see this discussion come up in self-defense stuff. It's like, how would you defend yourself against a dog? And I'm like, okay, so priority 1 is not hurting the dog. Priority 2 is not hurting me. But
right.
That's, dogs' noses are quite sensitive. And
they are just the clunky vampire.
Yeah, dogs are clunky. What? Apparently, in medieval mythology, or several medieval myths, a vampire is a werewolf who has died and come back from the dead.
Oh.
So, you're not that far off. It's...
Fair
enough. So, Bigfoot, Mosh, how are we fighting a Bigfoot? How
do we do this?
According to McBain, who fought a Dutch giant.
Was. He got very drunk. No, I mean, all these stories have that involved. But I'm trying to speed run remember this because I had the story told on a Zoom meeting like this at 3 a.m. Australian time because it was held on the other side of the planet. He had to guard and take some soldiers to a ship into Norway.
As you do.
He got very drunk because he's very good at that.
I mean, you do. When you're on a ship, you get drunk. This has been my life experience.
Yeah.
In the same way that, it's tipsy if it's just a ferry and it's drunk if it crosses international waters.
That way you've got an excuse
that's
for
the
why
rule.
you're vomiting.
Yeah.
So he, at a reasonable time, which is about the time when they're about leaving the bay, and the captain says, "No, we're not turning around, bud. You're with us."
Oh.
So he ends up in Norway. This is why McBain ended up fighting in Norway.
Wow.
Now, if someone else knows the story better, please correct me. 4. But he ends up in a forest, reasons that I can't remember I want to. And then a very large man of at least 7 with a large stick accosts him. He pulls out his spadroon, stabs him in the belly lightly, and runs like hell. McBain killed Bigfoot, and that's why we haven't seen him since.
Right.
Bigfoot being Dutch, and for some reason in Norway.
Very large Dutchman.
To be fair,
You know how it happened?
I'm sorry, but the fact that he stabbed the Dutchman. So the thing that I love is that we specify that McBain stabbed the Dutchman very lightly. So I'm now gonna call any thrust to the belly a McBain boop.
I don't want someone to get tippy. It works, okay? You got me.
It's like, oh, okay, no sepsis for me, thank you. I understand. Well done, sir.
You've got me good.
Carry
I haven't
on.
got a log, and I'm short. Let's go.
I like the. I mean, I think this should be a thing just extended to HEMA tournaments generally. Is that rather than calling it a touch, we should just call it a boop. You know, I mean, all forms of fencing really is just to make it more international, because boop is probably a more international term than anything in French, unless boop is also a French word.
Oh, it might be. B-O-U-P-E, I don't know. Boop.
Duolingo's angry that I don't keep doing my lessons.
I know, right? Duolingo's very, very needy and pushy.
I always feel like I'm probably going to end up fighting a duel with the Duolingo bird every time I want to learn a language from it. I'm just like, yeah.
Well, he's got big eyes. You could definitely aim for them for stabbies. Oh, for boops. I apologize for boops.
Yes, for boops.
That was a deep target boop on red. 2 points red.
2 points red.
I mean, this is the thing. I think if I was going to have to fight a Bigfoot, I don't know if a small sword or a spadroon would be my first choice, but because I feel like anything that's large and can rip you apart with its bare hands, you'd want to have a choppy weapon, just a choppy weapon to make sure that it couldn't grab you. I mean, I guess that goes back to that sort of thing of, what would you do if you had to sword fight an orangutan?
I think for an orangutan or for Bigfoot, I would probably want a case of swords, because I know inevitably it's going to grab one of them, so I want to have the other one ready to go.
Limit their options so you have
exactly.
your preferred option.
It's almost like a bait sword. It's like, I may have lost my left arm all the way up to the shoulder, but
you've been saved.
But you're dead. I can't do that. I have to.
I mean, I wonder if a sword and dagger would be better than a case of swords.
I'm afraid that a dagger wouldn't get through Bigfoot hide.
Ooh, yeah.
That would be my fear. But if that's the case, then we can go back to cutlass and tomahawk. Hand axe.
Yeah.
That's not a bad way to go.
Oh, I don't want to find that out the wrong way.
That's true, yeah. Or machete. Ooh, dual machetes.
Plus, a machete is just a useful thing to have with you.
It is.
Fight Bigfoot, trim a garden hedge.
Cut through Appalachian forest undergrowth,
all useful things. No, I'll see about that, because this is probably a maybe controversial theory to throw at Lois, but one of the things I observed from the amount of repair that I've done is that even against a fairly competent rapier fencer, I could still just use the fact that the weapon is so long, and when we've both got them, that both the weapons are so long, to tangle things up and close and turn a sword fight into a wrestling match. And as someone who's a much better wrestler than they are a rapier fencer, this worked well for me. Yeah. It made me wonder if a big chunk of the reason why you like rapier and dagger became a thing in the first place was because the dagger means that people won't close, because if they close, they'll get stabbed.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I mean, I don't know of any historical documentation that gives that as the reasoning, but it's certainly entirely plausible. The thing is, everybody had daggers. You know, depending on the culture, sometimes a dagger was a useful tool just to have. Sometimes it was a tool and a sign of wealth. Godinho, for example, admonishes you to carry your dagger not off to the side where it can be seen, because that's only what ostentatious people do who don't know what they're doing, but instead to tuck it sort of behind the small of the back. So if you're a right-handed fencer, it'll be but sort of under your right kidney with the hilt down, so that when you do that cool capey trick, you know, where you sweep your hand behind to gather your cape on your arm, you can grab your dagger on the way out, and you have your dagger up, and then you have the
That's cool. And also, it also means
that's more ostentatious.
It's actually, yeah.
Next time I see you, Mosh, I'll teach you how to do that cape setup, because you can definitely do it, and you'd pull it off.
Yeah, I want to learn as well. Just any reason to be more fancy, really. Like if I have an excuse to wear a cape.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there's English sources like
LARPers asking me about like behind the kidney daggers. Tim, the lag made
crossover. I was like, am I being rude? I mean, I do want to sword fight Mosh, but not because like I was rude to them. I just in general, I just want to sword fight Mosh. Yeah, like no. Is there English sources about like the idea was, you know, if you're going out to the pub or the ale house, you would wear a dagger or not like a knife, or it's a bit vague what they are, but like you'd wear a dagger in the small of your back. And so that way, like, it's not necessarily obvious you have the dagger, but if like shenanigans ensue, like, you know,
you've got it ready to go.
Yeah,
and that's the implication that Godinho has, though he doesn't talk as clearly about it. With Figueiredo, he doesn't mention where you're carrying your dagger. He just says the dagger is one of the most frequently encountered offhand weapons that you will ever find. The only one that's more common is the cape, because everybody wears a cape.
It's cold.
Partly because it's cold, partly to keep the weather off you. Like, 'cause Spain is actually not that cold. Parts of Spain can behave a bit like inland Queensland, because it gets very hot and very dry.
Which, as a weird bit of trivia about Australia, the rabbits that infest this place are actually originally from the British actually had to bring out Spanish rabbits. Which is kind
of the British ones couldn't survive, I'm sure. They'd be like,
they did not like the temperatures. And so because the British were determined to bring out rabbits to, the British Empire.
There was some dude in the United States who took it upon himself to bring every single species mentioned in every single available Shakespeare play to North America, which is why we have infestations of starlings. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Evolution is no match for human stupidity.
Yeah, right? But I want to do this.
Oh god. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. No. It's...
Yeah.
Why?
I know. Like, and the thing is, like, we can sit here and be completely, we'd be like, why? No, seriously.
Yeah. But there's a whole honors thesis in like the exact, colonial history of why did they do this very stupid thing, which You know,
But
someone
I
will one
want
day
to
write.
have my rabbit hunts, and I should have my rabbit hunts if I want to. No, can you? Mick says, next you'll mock the importation of cane toads. What could go wrong? Except now the ibises are figuring it out. They'll flip the cane toad and stab them in the belly,
Yeah.
which is very cool.
That is very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, we call them bin chickens.
That's
but they're pretty
actually
smart.
tremendous.
Yeah, yeah.
it's
I love ibis.
yeah. So I
I didn't know like bin chicken was a derogatory thing until I was like older, because like the farm I grew up on, ibises were like really like, oh my god, they're so beautiful.
They are very cool. I remember being totally shocked when when I arrived, and I'm like, okay, kangaroos I get, yeah, possums I get, bats What are you doing so far from Egypt? No, sweetheart. Ibises range further than Africa, okay? Yeah.
Ibis is basically anywhere that there's bins, there'll be an ibis.
Well, yeah.
Which I guess does bring.
I guess the god of writing and rummaging.
Yeah, that's how it rolls.
Writing is the rummaging of ideas, so yeah, fair.
That should just be your quote. Like that should be your descriptive quote. The next thing you get published is writing is just the rummaging of ideas, just without context, just to upset. So speaking of things that are kind of aquatic,
Yeah. Oh.
mermaids, but like the old school, drowned sailors to eat their flesh mermaids.
Earplugs.
Die. I'll just die.
I don't know of any HEMA schooler style that tells you what to do if you've been knocked overboard.
Yeah,
I need to fight something that is dragging you to your death. I don't know.
Yeah. I see. I was kind of wondering if maybe there's got. So there are some very obscure martial arts that here's how to here's what to do in water. Like there are some tradition. Apparently there is a traditional Japanese martial art that is basically it's jujitsu, but when you're in water.
Yeah, in Bobu. Yeah.
I'm like, there's got to be something in Europe, but there's got to be someone wrote something in a manual of here's here's how to deal with just being in deal with being submerged. But yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's. I guess that's kind of a thing because we have maritime manuals like Pringle Green, as we mentioned before, and cutlassy stuff. Which but none of them deal with what to do if you actually end up in the water. It's all
Yeah, the thing is, once you're in the water, the thing that generates damage when you're using a weapon is momentum, and the one thing that you totally lose when you're in the water because you're pushing against water is momentum. So, what do you do? Because now you're not standing on anything, and there you go, small swords. That's right. Small swords are thin and small, and they're easy to move through water. That's it. He's got it. That or Fiore dagger.
Yeah. Just wrestle while tumbling a washing machine.
Yeah.
So actually, a story I heard that does relate to not a European martial art per se, but essentially, a almost combat sport that emerged in Europe. So on a US Army base I think it was in Japan or something, there are a bunch of martial artists who were doing the whole, whose style is best thing. This was in the 90s when the UFC was just getting going. So
it sounds like Okinawa.
Yeah, very probably. But there was this discussion. I was the karate guy's no, I can kick better, and then the boxing goes, no, the punching, and then the judo guy's no, we'll just get really good. And there was this one guy. He goes, I will take you all on, and I will beat all of you. I will beat all of you with my style. And everyone's like, what the heck, this guy's martial arts. But they all took him up on it. And the first thing he did, as soon as everyone like sort of lined up to take him on one by one, he turned around and he ran and he jumped in a pool because he was a water polo player.
Right.
And as soon as everyone had to get into the water to get him, at which point they were completely out of their element. He just kind of bobbed their head under the water until they tapped.
No.
Which, if you've ever seen water
polo players defy laws of physics all the time. If you want to talk about an art that has some mysticism behind it, it's water polo players and their training regimes.
I was just thinking, it's also just incredibly brutal. It's like, as long as it's not, as long as anything, because the refs can't see under, or refs you weren't able to see underwater traditionally. So so just you
and there's a reason that they have those cups over their ears, and that's because it's very easy to look like you're flailing in the water and you're actually boxing the ear, and that boxing of the ear changes the air pressure within the ear canal so strongly that it pops the eardrum, which is an incredibly painful experience if you haven't experienced it.
I have not.
Like,
so take my word for it.
It's kind of like, look, it's to make sure they don't knock your ears out and incapacitate you for a stretch of time.
So like, that's probably.
So the answer is hire a polo team.
Yes, hire a water polo team, not horse polo.
That's right. Yeah, horse polo team. That's for the comedy. But the water polo team, you just stand back and go, okay. I think, okay.
Yeah. It's just. I mean, David suggested a galleon at ramming speed, which I guess if your ship was big enough and moving quickly enough, it would be very, very difficult for mermaids to do anything.
Yeah, like cling onto the hull and try to do something from there.
Yeah. Even then, because keel hauling, the whole point of keel hauling was that the holes were covered in barnacles and weird scratchy crap. So, being dragged under the hull of the ship was an incredibly painful experience, even if it didn't kill you, which it most likely would. I don't think you'd actually. It'd be very, very difficult to direct a galleon to ram a mermaid, especially because they could just dive underwater when you're heading towards them. But if
gunning through infested water sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
That's probably why we don't. There's so few mermaid attacks now. Is ships are just too quick.
It's like you're in your Dodge Charger. You're like, this here's werewolf country.
Yeah. I mean, Bill's answer was don't get on the boats, but
don't get on the boats at all.
Made kangaroos, they're on par.
Yeah. I got the big long tails for getting moving around.
Saying that just then made me realize how bad the lag is.
Just a
no. See, I don't know if it's you're only lagging from your end, it's only I can see the lag, or if there's going to be a delay in the broadcast.
I don't know.
It is completely random. I'm just But no. If we've talked about things that go under the water, what about something that flies? So let's say a harpy or some kind of flying humanoid, winged monkey, winged orangutan with a sword.
I'm definitely going to want a Rotella, and I'm just going to let the Rotella live on my head. Oh, Mosh has an idea. What's your idea, Mosh?
Ooh, do tell.
All right. So, Spanish fencing has the power of the right angle, 90 degrees.
Yeah.
You regress to silver and use his power of 180 degrees open. Done.
Right. You just go extreme obtuse and you're good to go.
Straight
hold it above your head.
To the
wave it around.
Guy, it's the exact same as Spanish fencing suddenly.
You're maintaining threat against the opponent at all times. I mean, you are.
vertical
So-
Spanish.
Right?
So here's the thing: Silver really is part of the Stresa tradition. He's just defending against aerial threats. That's all. That's what it is. It's a mystery that's been solved. Thank you. Mark.
Exactly.
I'm so glad.
It's such a wild thing. Yeah.
I wouldn't say Saviolo. No, who's the other English rapierist who his other text was absolute bitch?
It's not Gigante. My brain
He
is
wrote
saying
one
Ghirardelli,
sword
and
manual. English boy.
So when you say other
said a
text,
dumb
Oh,
thing.
it's not Swetnam, is it? No.
I mean, said a dumb thing doesn't nail it down, but you might be thinking of Swetnam, whose other text, namely a very misogynist play, was absolutely awful.
Perfect. Sweating them happy.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So he's all about hating harpies.
Oh no.
So really,
no.
It's okay. We're making fun of a long dead misogynist. It's okay. It's okay.
yeah,
He's not making any money off of our discourse. It's
yes. So, Mosh, just for clarity, is your solution just to not be a horrible misogynist, and the harpies will just be like, all right, well, you seem cool, we'll just leave you alone?
You, sir, are not a dick. You may carry on.
If that isn't the meta, I need to bat a Melbourne.
Oh no, I think you broke Tim, man. Good
I
job.
also like carrying an umbrella.
It was bound to happen.
Yeah, no, I think right now the winner is, Do Silver's 180-degree full obtuse right angle to the sky. I think
Hold the sword up.
reuniting Silver with the Stresa tradition. That I think is key.
I love that as
Good
well.
fencing is good fencing.
Yeah. I love as well that doing that would upset Silver so incredibly deeply.
Oh, he'd be so mad. He'd be so mad.
Yeah, but I feel like making Silver mad would be like shooting fish in a barrel, though. Like you just seem
But
like
it's
a
also
really
incredibly
dumb guy.
entertaining. It's like trolling trolls who don't get it.
Just make Silver angry. Oh, dear. Yeah. Oh god. So what about the Headless Horseman or a Headless Horseman? You've got a former German mercenary,
Right.
cavalry person who's been cursed by a witch, who now is like searching for their head and goes around cutting off people, rides out in the moonlight, cuts people's heads off to replace his own, but it never actually fills the void left above his neck. Headless Horseman. How
Modern foil. Modern foil. Done.
How you need to explain this?
What are you gonna? Do you want the modern foil to break and then lodge in his
Target
chest?
zones. No. There's no new target zones. It's like, same game. Can't screw this up.
I feel like
Yeah.
I kind of assumed that a headless horseman would be on a horse, and as much as I would like, I think there has actually there is some video of foil fencing done from horseback. I still think there might be a little bit of need of modification.
Well, if we're talking about the Headless Horseman, that era would be smallsword. That would be smallsword going into classic foil,
Yeah.
and a bit of backsword, like a bit of actual cavalry weaponry.
Yeah, like sort of, yeah. Oh. Mm.
Cape could actually work here.
Mm.
Not necessarily to throw over his head, but to wrap up that arm.
Mm. Yeah, that's the thought. Because just drag him off his horse, and then
Oh yeah,
just wrap up the arm, drag him off his horse, and
yeah.
then just start kicking him.
yeah. You could also have a blunderbuss or a long arm of the time, not to shoot, but actually just to take and to knock him off.
Well, if you're going down that path, like, musket and bayonet, or like a spear, just same way you deal with like any cavalry. Actually, that's the thing. I don't think like with just like IRL regular cavalry, you're never going to stab them in the face anyway. So
no. You want to take out the horse. So it depends. Are we assuming that we're on horseback or that we're not? Because Ichabod Crane was on horseback.
I don't see why we can't give answers to both. Right. So first on horseback, then on foot.
Well, on horseback at that point, it's literally a distance game. You just have to keep your horse tacking. You have to make sure that the Headless Horseman doesn't stop you.
Yeah, you just basically. So really, you're just using your horse to run away. Just have a faster horse.
You don't have to have a faster horse. You have to have better footwork
on your horse.
That's right. And the thing is, if you look at some of the texts that talk about how to do stuff on a horse, they do talk about how to operate, how to move your horse around to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So horse footwork is a riding skill and is legit.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Well, that's.
But if you have if you've got Ichabod Crane's, if you've got Ichabod Crane's nag though. That's a different story. You'll never outpace. There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. I mean...
So at that point, what you want to do is you want to keep your head down. Having a fight on horseback is hard. It's just hard. It's hard enough when you're on your own 2 feet, but having to rely on an animal that you're steering with your knees... and to some extent your hand, depending on what you're doing and how you ride.
Yeah, you sort of it gets extra complicated.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a trained cavalryman with a backsword or a saber, you're going to stand a pretty good chance. But the German Hessians were very well trained troops. There's a reason that the British paid for them.
Yeah. Germany at the time was exporting a lot of mercenaries. Like I think, on both sides of the American War of Independence, there were German mercenaries coming in, if not as troops, as instructors, particularly for the Americans. They got. As much as they bankrupt, as much as America's first act as an independent country was to bankrupt France. They got their money's worth.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what I'm talking about, the part of how the American War of Independence was funded was the French basically gave them a lot of financial and military backing as a way of basically trying to destabilize the British Empire, much the same way as governments back insurgents today. But they end up spending. The royal, French royalty was not exactly known for its restraint or cleverness, but they managed to bankrupt themselves in the process. I was actually thinking about this. I'm like, because if I was on horseback, I feel like that's one of those times where having a longer sword would be more advantageous. Even having something if you're not actually expecting to have to stand and cut and parry or riposte, if you're just going to leg it, having something like a rapier would probably be more useful.
So here's the thing with a longer sword. A longer sword takes much more time to reorient in a required position. A small sword is wickedly fast. And if you get something like a spadroon that is built like a small sword but can take a good solid cut, that would probably be my vote. Because so for me, doing what I do, you would think that I should be using the longest sword possible, but I don't, because I'm 5'6" and my arms are of a certain length, and the moment that my blade gets at further than a certain length, all of the proportions between the length of the blade, the actuation of my wrist, the actuation of my shoulder, get thrown out. It's just no longer efficient. So you, Tim, can manage a much longer blade than I can because you're taller than me. and
I mean,
it's
I
all
don't
in
want to.
proportions. So you can actually move it around with ease, not necessarily because you're stronger than me, which you may be, but because your proportions match that longer blade a bit better. And it's just a question of fulcrums and levers.
Yeah.
So I would not want to have a really long weapon because depending on how good the Headless Horseman is, I need to be able to bring that sword to bear on either side and defend me on either side. And I just don't want to be fussing with a longer blade that can get tangled up in my clothing, in my cape, in my tack potentially, because I'm going to be panicking.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that answers something that I've been wondering for a while. Like, why is it that, like, it's fairly rare with cavalry that they have particularly long swords? Like, I mean, even, you know, in the Elizabethan period, that when swords are, or rapiers are otherwise quite common, and, you know, even in periods where it is very, very fashionable to have the longest sword possible, to the point where Queen Elizabeth had to introduce a law about that your sword could not be longer than 5 foot.
Yeah.
The fucking stop it laws. That's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you still don't really see like the really long rapiers and stuff used from horseback. And yeah, so that actually would make sense if it's like, if you're expecting to need to reorientate your sword, and especially if it's like all around you, you know, like, you know, and also with a horse's head in the way, that would make sense. It would just be this incredibly frustrating thing.
Mosh has an idea, and I want to give him space to say what he's thinking.
There were hand lances that were like those very thrust-centric swords that looked like straight sabers, but were quite long. But they were intended only to thrust.
So along those lines, along what Mosh is saying,
and then just let your arm drag out.
Yeah, so along what Mosh is saying, if you were to take a rapier, like I don't know if you've seen my cup hilt, but it's like a typical 1630s, 1650s cup hilt. That blade is not going to cope with me thrusting with the speed of a horse behind it. Even if I'm at a canter, even if I'm in a slow canter, there's the chance that the impact put on that weapon, just from me putting a point into a target, into even a stationary target where I'm at a slow canter, is going to be enough to actually deform the blade and not let it into a body, which is, I think, one of the reasons that we start seeing triangular profiles on small swords.
Yeah, and those hand lancers were very built up compared to a regular rapier. They were
and I think
garbage weapon.
Yeah, and that's why you have the straight back swords, because they can put up with being crammed into a target at speed. So, you know, if you're a civilian and you're picking fights with other civilians, you know, what, did you take my beer? What, sir? Did you take my beer? Oh God, here we go. It's just two civilians, probably in clothes, even though we've got Pacheco and Figueiredo complaining. Well, Figueiredo sets it aside, but Pacheco complains about people putting leather bracers or wooden boards under the clothing in the sleeve, so that nobody knows that they're there, but all of a sudden people are fighting and they go bang, they knock something away.
Someone complained about the Italians wearing chainmail underneath their clothes.
Yeah. Wearing a chain shirt under their outer garments, yeah.
Yep.
I feel like that would get really uncomfortable really
still
quickly.
The meta in LARP.
Yeah. I don't know. If you get used to doing it, you know, you're going to have your chemise, you're going to have an undergarment, and then you're going to have the chainmail over it, and you're going to have a garment over that. And if we think about living in a place where it maybe hits 22 on a hot summer day, then it becomes a more realistic thing. I sure wouldn't want to wear chainmail.
Yeah.
I've done it and worn it underneath clothing. And yeah, as long as it isn't typically Australian, you're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just once you're used to it, it's not too bad, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, David has a good idea about the Headless Horseman. Take out the
taking it off
Headless
at the end of
Horseman's
a day.
horse.
Yeah,
That's smart.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not going for the knees. Actually, because I remember asking Arne Coates about this ages back when we had him, and he's like, "Yeah, that's his answer." I forget his reasoning, so everyone should go back and watch the workshop. But in his mind, that going for the horse's knees and stuff would be a lot more difficult than everyone seems to think. Which
it's a small, very fast-moving target, isn't it?
Very fast-moving, very chunky.
Yeah.
It's also very, very. The other thing actually I realized about it as well is getting at the horse's knees in a way that doesn't expose you to a weapon attack from the rider is actually quite hard.
Yeah, fair enough.
The same reason you don't go for a human's knees in a sword fight, just off the bat is because they're going to slip and like pog you in the face. Whereas if so you tend to go like when you're fighting someone one-on-one, you go for highline targets because you can cover yourself as you're coming in. Conversely, if you're new to sword fighting, one of the first things you want to learn how to do in order to bout is deal with someone who leg dives, because it's the thing that a lot of people do until it stops working very, very badly.
Yeah.
I don't know about I think going for the horse is definitely the more vulnerable part of the Headless Horseman, although
going for the horse, if I were to go for the horse, I'd be trying to strike the horse's eyes. I'd be trying to strike the horse's face, because that'll flip him out, and it gives me the opportunity to stay far away from the Headless Horseman's weapon.
Yeah.
Because in theory, I will have my sword arm and the Headless Horseman's horse between me and the Headless Horseman's weapon.
Yeah.
In theory. But even then, that's a hard target to hit. It is hard to hit anything when you're moving and it's moving and both are at speed.
Yeah, Chambon, who looked at a couple of weeks ago, who I kind of want to do a more detailed look at some point in the future. He recommends that. He says go to the non-sword side of the rider because then you've got a lot of advantages. But he reckons basically the times when you would attack the horse are times where the side you go for the side of the horse, and it's at the same time when you could also reasonably go for the horse, the rider's leg, or the lower part of their stomach or their groin kind of thing. It's all kind of in the same. It's the same kind of air. It's all of the stuff that is.
Same here.
Yeah, it's the stuff that is at extension height. So you basically what he's expecting is that you will go for what is available, given allowing you to have the most reach possible. Which I think if I had to fight a Headless Horseman on foot, I probably would use a scabbard in the offhand, just
to stop a strike.
Yeah.
It may only last for one block, but that's one more block that you didn't have. So.
Yeah. Well, depending on what the scabbard is made of. Yeah. Matt Matthews asked if we're limiting ourselves to swords. No, the first weapon we chose was pocket sand.
That's true.
I kind of wonder if pocket sand would work against the horse, though. You just pocket sand the horse in the eyes as it comes in.
Potentially.
And then the horse is freaking out because it's got eyes full of
big nose.
Pocket sand. And that's when you go and you get the rider, and that's how you get ahead.
You know what? At that time, actually, you could get sodium bicarbonate. If you get bicarbonate of soda, you could get that. And if that gets into moist membranes, that is an unpleasant feeling. That is not fun.
Also, Tim saying how to get ahead during this was just rude.
Oh no.
Come on, you knew that we're headed in that direction.
Yeah.
The horse on that one is just bolted.
Oh no.
Headed in that direction. I want to go.
Yeah, are you not already?
Is anyone really at this point?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I am. I just want the emotional.
This is my main specialty, you know, sword and offhand pun. You know.
Oh.
Does a horseman's neck count as a moist membrane? That's a good question. And I think, yeah. Can you imagine that awful hacking noise? You know, surprise baking soda on an open neck wound going. And then just froth coming out of the collar. This is good. I like this. We should continue in this direction.
To what end?
So, this is just.
How to make yourself incredibly uncomfortable at the situation while they hack at you.
I think we may have broken Tim again.
At this point, I think I'm just holding together like spit and sellotape. So you know.
Fair enough.
Oh God, yeah. So, witches. You have to fight a witch.
Well, I just want to briefly go back to Bill Anderson, who's talking about making a blood fool from the Headless Horseman's frothing neck to feed the vampires. Well, that is a perfect callback, Phil. That is very well done.
I like that all of Bill's solutions have been, you know, kind of cooperatives. Like the werewolf, I'll just domesticate it. You know, just bring some dog treats, a fetch toy. You know, make yourself a new friend. Get
him a Furminator. I'm sure he's feeling kind of mad at it. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, take him out for. You know, that's the thing with a lot of werewolf myths is like there are people who were werewolves, knew they were werewolves, and so like they just lock themselves in like the cellar every full moon, or as there's one myth actually where it was Christmas. Is this guy was born on Christmas Day, and because it's like an obscure sin to be born on the same day as Jesus, he was a werewolf, and so every Christmas he just locked himself in the basement, and that was his solution until one unfortunate Christmas he got out and went on a rampage, and that was the end, which led to his inevitable demise.
Yeah.
But yeah. I thought that like the pocket bicarb soda to the neck was horrifying enough, but
no, I like this blood fool thing going on. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so
you know what I mean when I'm saying fool, right?
No, I have no idea.
It's a kind of dessert that does go back to the 1700s, and it's pretty much just a fruit jam and whipped cream, and you serve it as a mousse. So, like, if you've ever seen the YouTube channel called The Townsends, they featured something called Orange Fool, which was made with orange juice and whipped cream, and was one of George Washington's favorite desserts, except that was during the time of Trump, and some people jumped to conclusions, and he copped a lot of nonsense for it. But my roommate back in New York, when I lived in Brooklyn, made raspberry fool, and it was delicious. So blood fool, it's frothed blood. It's a delicious vampire dessert.
I mean, I want like the regular fruit fool, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that just sounds amazing, and I do like. I mean, I do have some reenactor tendencies where I'm like, why don't we just have like a period feast at like HEMA events, or you know, So, just. I think it's definitely a thing to.
Yeah.
you know, to do more food. Cool. And yes, I will post the link to to the video to the chat.
To the Townsend's Orange Fool, which is a
Yes.
great video. And if people aren't familiar with the Townsends, he's a guy out in Indiana. He's a second generation historical reenactor and supplier. And
Makes good stuff. I've got some of his clothes. They're good.
Yeah, and he cooks recipes out of period cookbooks, and he's just a really lovely, enthusiastic human being.
He seems really wholesome. When you said he was being harassed.
Yeah.
I'm just like, but that's so mean. He seems like such a lovely guy.
I know, and he responded like that. I try to keep politics out of this. This is about history. There's enough politics in history to cover anything we need. You know?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, on the subject of possibly inflammatory things, witches.
Witches, oh dear. Well, here's the thing: depending on the witch that you get, you may have to.
The actual draw, what's his name, Joseph Swetnam? Just be like, here you go, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like that would having to fight an actual witch would probably break him. He just he couldn't handle regular women, let alone
I can just imagine the witch going, "Oh, this guy, yeah, give me a second, I'll be right back."
Just be like, that's us. She's just like, look, you don't have to fight us. You can just fight Joseph Swetnam, and it'll all be good.
There we go, Agatha Harkness style combat magic. That's the thing, what's the kind of witch that you're dealing with? Are you dealing with an educated witch who might actually be able to duel you on your terms? In which case, now it becomes a proper sword fight.
It's when the secret occult Distressa comes out.
Yeah, exactly, right. Suddenly the circle glows in the ground. You're like, you said that didn't happen.
Lois lied to us.
From A to B, then passing step to G, then screw it up and get stabbed.
I see you're familiar with Distressa.
Was your sword in an obtuse outside angle? No? Well, then you're hosed. If you think Thibaut is bad, I will try to introduce you to Rada's 3D coordinate system, which is like one extra layer of oh please God no.
I just love.
Oh yes,
I just love
choose battleships.
Just do the most confusing sword fighting possible.
All Lois is doing is yelling the Pythagorean theorem, but she's beating us, and I don't know why.
Murder with maths.
It works for math rock, math fencing. It works.
Math rock? Is that just a rock that you hit people with if they're
No, mathematical music, rock, math.
Ah,
that stuff is great.
Oh, you like math core, but rock instead of
using
rap.
stupid time signatures.
Yeah, just check out Adam Neely, and the world will unfurl before you.
What you do is you use your rapier in
when Mosh says stupid
5/4,
time signature,
and your offhand at 7/4.
right?
So then you're just moving in 5/4 at the in 5, and then they can't get the rhythm of your hands, and then while you're too busy worrying about your rhythm, they stab you because you were in.
Turn a sword fighting to dance battle.
Unless my feet are moving in 3/4, in which case I have some chance.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I failed music.
That's okay. Yeah. We're not really making any sense, really. But
we're making less sense now than we were half an hour ago when we're discussing whether or not the Headless Horseman's neck counts as a moist membrane. So
moist
things I didn't want to be reminded of. And here we are.
I really want to give him
have rabies.
I mean, I imagine that's I mean that would be a thing when you like if you've got like a permanently exposed like moist membrane, you know,
Yeah.
like.
Oh yeah. Yeah. How do you fight a mind reader? I would have to rely on my Japanese training, as if I could actually achieve this state of no mind. But you know, that's how you would do it.
Well, depending on what languages the mind reader can read, just if you think in Japanese, it might foil them.
Oh! What you do is you get an earworm and you just play it loudly in your head over and over.
Just think of like just strongly think of Rick Astley's never going to give you up.
Right? Yeah, you know, something like that, or you know, the
I think you're going way too esoteric. We need to present threat and follow up with threat whole time. Just go, oh, David, thank you. Yes. Fencing. Threaten and rotate.
Yeah, I like this is the thing. I don't think someone being able to read my mind while I sword fight would help them terribly much. It'd just be like all they'd be getting is a stream of constant panic and profanity.
It's interesting if I'm thinking about like if I'm fighting at full speed or like at proper speed. Full speed I only do if I'm fully kitted, and then I'm usually too lazy to get into kit because it's too damn hot, so I rarely fight full speed. But if I'm fighting at reasonable speed, then at that point it's not, I wonder if I should do this. Oh, what if I try blah? It's a lot more, there's less language and there's more concept follow. So if the witch is not familiar with my weird bullshit concepts, it's just going to be a bunch of, why is she thinking about donuts and slinky springs? What? Meanwhile, I'm like, general.
But also,
general.
The solution is just to have the mind of an excitable cat.
Yeah.
But also, it's got to be like, can they process that said thought and then act upon it faster than their eyes or their feeling? Because that actually might add another committed, like, another thing before they even commit to an action. It might slow them down, which is like, well, 6 disengages and thrusts down south. It'd be great. That's better than waiting for them to commit to inaction or something. Like that. I'd rather fence a mind reader.
I think, yeah.
However, what happens if the
Overload the
witch
CPU.
can actually scry through time? You know, like if we're dealing with a witch who can actually scry through time, now we're in trouble.
Yeah, but that then raises the question of if you can see the future and still have agency, is it really the future? Because if you're like, if I do this, I'm going to get stabbed. You just not do that thing. At which point your predictions are worthless anyway. I feel like having, like anything like time stuff is just.
Yeah, it breaks itself.
Yeah, it's like a. So I don't know. Like you've got like a witch that can scry through time, and they're just. Yeah. I imagine they'd just be sitting there in this constant state of confusion, going, "Oh no, I've changed the future. Oh, sorry, I've changed the future."
So the funny thing about this question is that it's like, what would you do to fight a witch? And I'm like, I usually see myself as the witch. This is confusing.
Okay, well, how do you fight another witch? Just...
I wouldn't want to. I'd tend and befriend, man. Tend and befriend.
Yeah.
But if I had to, like if I had a bad rival, if I had somebody who wouldn't deal with me in good faith, and I had to go out and I had to put her down for the good of everybody, all out. It would be all out. I would definitely want a Rotella with me. Because I don't know if she's going to be throwing fireballs or who knows what. So I want to have at least, I want to have a cone of, oh dear God, no.
Yeah.
And then probably a side sword. I want to be able to cut as well as I thrust. So I'd probably want a side sword with me.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just imagining you in like a magic thing, like you said like all the superheroes were like they're shooting beams at each other and the beams are pushing back and forth and you're just like pocket sand.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Concentrate with this.
Like then again, like in terms of like the tandem befriend thing, a lot of the best friends I have are made through sword fighting. So
Right.
maybe that's the sword to fight a fellow witch with is whichever one they're interested in, so you can make a friend.
Exactly. Weapon of preference, madam. I want to use side swords. Great, thanks. That's awesome. Anyway, let's play.
and then we'll go for beers afterwards.
We do need more sword witches.
The real lesson were the friends we made along the way. It's hag of the lake, we need you to please stop eating children. Yes, I promise to fight you every Wednesday from 7 to 9. If that'll help you stop eating children. Look, I'll bring you suckling pigs. It's almost the same thing.
Having a regular student like that would be a win.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Someone who's just going to turn up, like, yes.
I think that's exactly. And then like just witches often come in threes. That's like 3 training partners at once. Like,
and they're each going to have a different strength, and like they'll have different ways of approaching the fight. It's great.
Yeah.
Oh, 3 is. You set 2 up for a drill, and you get to do the plastron with 1, and you get to rotate them through. It's so much easier. Oh.
David comes in with yet another good line.
No, David, no.
Dear.
Of all the Monty Python stuff to last, like...
Well, the Inquisition lasted for how long? It's only fair.
Yeah, fair. Oh, how long?
Till last century, I think.
Yeah, they were... I think there was some vestige of the Inquisition around when Franco was around. So, like, we're talking, like, into the 20th century.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh. Given our new premier, we might see them in New South Wales again.
I am so sorry. I am so sorry. That is...
Yay.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of where New South Wales has been at for the last little while. It's just everyone else is like, New South Wales, we're so sorry. Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
And it's better to laugh because we don't want to cry on YouTube and Facebook, like...
Yeah. I'm not this time. Oh, dear. Yeah. Well, on that note, on the note of, the real HEMA is the friends we made along the way. So we should because if we're going to make weird associations, we may as well. So we should probably finish up soonish. At the very least, I'm going to be on Zoom after this to hang out. We've got a question.
One last question. How do I fight Freddy Krueger? You stay awake the entire time.
Yeah, I'm fucked. I'm just gonna die. It's fine.
Well, we know that we know that he lasts through fire. So I think I might be tempted to use maybe some tight flail work, but using a rotary saw. Or maybe a bench grinder.
So Villain says it's just a box of no-dos.
Right.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know what...
His pockets in.
Except you throw it in your own face, Every time you're like...
Looks, when the caffeine wears off, the pain of no-dos in your eyes. Yeah,
Ow.
Well,
the pain would keep you awake, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it's... Oh, God, yeah, but... I know whenever I see Freddy Krueger, he's got like little finger blades, I'm just like, that would not be a very effective weapon because fingers are like if the blade got caught in something, you'd break your finger.
Yeah, you know what? This is where I would want the long rapier. This is exactly where I would want the long rapier. Oh yeah, so you got knife fingers, huh?
Yeah, just
Disengage, 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 disengage.
Yeah,
Cavazioni.
Yeah, it's like you can try to catch my point. You can try to catch my point. You can try to catch my point. You can try to catch my point.
Oh god, it's like yeah. I was just thinking. I actually had I did like a knife fight like with padded knives, you know, like these things.
No.
Just because I've been exposed to the wrong bits of the internet when I have to be careful saying knife fight because people immediately go, "Have you done it for real?" I'm like, no, that doesn't sound anywhere as much fun as like padded knife,
no.
like sparring with padded knives is. But you know, this guy he'd done a bunch of jiu-jitsu and like a bunch of kickboxing and like stuff, and he'd initially been interested in trying like the knife defense stuff out against knife people, and then he decided he was going to try fencing with the knives, and he realized very, very quickly that because he hadn't had all 15 minutes that it takes to learn how to knife fight, he was at a severe disadvantage against me. So what he decided to do was try and grab, use his jiu-jitsu and then stab me, which just meant that what ended up happening is he knife fought with his offhand forward and I kept whacking him in the hand. This was like, it was incredible. This was probably, of all the fights that I've videoed and then watched later, this is the one that I felt, this is the only time I've really felt really good about myself after watching like the fight, because I realized that just most of the fight was just me whacking him repeatedly in the hand, and most of the the two grapples he got on me, at all, one of which I did actually manage to reverse as well, often came off being whacked in the hand with a knife. And I feel like with like a Freddy Krueger kind of thing where it'd be a lot harder for him to kind of keep a weapon in threat whilst also protecting his hand. So it'd be kind of like the best of both though. You just like constantly whack him in the hand with whatever. I mean, like, you know, like my best streams often involve swords. So, you know, so yeah, but like, yeah. Yeah, so there was, but yeah, so it was, like, yeah, I think that's kind of a thing of like, if you have like, you know, if you're actually fighting Freddy Krueger, it's like, you know, you see like the Freddy versus Jason thing. Jason has Jason's machete is a significantly better weapon than like finger blades.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. Can we stringer the blade like between his hand? He'll go to grab it and it just funnels in.
Well, I feel like if Freddy Krueger did successfully grab something though, he'd stab himself. Like just imagine bang in the palm.
Because if he bends his wrist in like that, all of a sudden all this stuff is shredded beef.
Maybe we should be fighting Freddy Krueger with like OH&S requirements. Be like, no, sorry, not OH&S. This is why you got set on fire. This is how you got set on fire, wasn't it? You know, just poor fire safety.
That's right. That's right. And the whole Noxzema skincare lotion. Then he becomes your friend. He's like, all I needed was somebody to help me with the scar tissue. Thank you. Again, tend and befriend, you know?
Yes. I like how like 90% of our solution, non-sword solutions, is here's a way to befriend the monster.
Well, you know, they catch a lot of nonsense. They may be okay. They just need a little bit of time and understanding.
It's just every monster just needs a hug.
Possibly. It's just some hugs need to be administered in a very careful way.
Yeah, I was just with you, like, especially with Freddy Krueger with the stabby hands. like an industrial, industrial negotiator. No,
Yeah,
sorry,
exactly.
just,
My weapon of choice is my union rep.
Yes. We'll call the union.
You know?
Yeah. How do you beat Freddy Krueger? Just picket line. Just everyone is on strike.
Yeah.
Just like no.
Yeah.
Oh no, there's a pun. There's a pun with scab in there.
Oh. I was going to make it as well. I was going to be like, then again, Freddy Krueger was in the scab, but
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
oh god.
All right. All sword things de-evolve. Or actually, no, evolve into communist propaganda in the best way every time.
There we go. Yeah.
That is
In the propaganda.
Oh yeah, that is the trajectory. That is the trajectory of most of my conversations. Let's be fair. There's actually, I don't know if anyone saw I posted a thing.
What's the 90-degree?
Pardon? I don't know if anyone saw. I posted a thing on Chivalry, and there used to be a union called the Knights of Labour, and I'm so disappointed that that's like that. That's not how unions are named anymore. There's no.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Knights of Labour.
Now I need a band.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've devolved into tend and befriend and communism,
yeah, we should probably
dogs and cats.
It's
living
about
together.
the time that we do the Zoom call for this.
Yeah. I'm going to start the Zoom call now, just so that it'll be going. Because I know, like, I've had a few people who have gotten frustrated that they need to wait. But yeah, so details for Zoom are in the description. I think I've posted them.
Yep.
I've definitely posted them. Okay. Well,
It needs to be. It needs to be.
We can dream. Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to continue the silliness in the Zoom call. You all are welcome to join in, and if the details are in the Facebook and in the event description if you're on YouTube. Also, if you want to enable more of this silliness, please make a donation at PayPal. This will only encourage my bullshit.
Right.
Also, if you want to support Lois, Lois has a Patreon, which I'm pretty sure I posted to the event, where you can get all sorts of cool Distressor translations and just other awesome stuff. I have no idea how to support Mosh, but I think we all should. So just, just if you see
Just
Mosh,
support me. Go to sword school, do HEMA fencing, go play with swords, and make life really wonderful for those around you with a weapon of war. Because the irony is hilarious.
Yeah, so support Mosh by joining your local HEMA club, and if you're in Sydney, make that local HEMA club the old sword club.
Make at least one of them, because why not do more than one?
Right, fair, yeah, definitely. I will see everyone in Zoom or at some point or at a HEMA club in the future, and yeah, let's all I'm in the stream now because I'm running out of words.